Hello, and thank you for joining us on Hello Mayor. I'm City of Las Vegas Mayor Carolyn Goodman. The City of Las Vegas Municipal Court system not only hears misdemeanor cases, it has 7 specialty courts. Here to talk more about those and more on our municipal court, our Chief Judge, Cynthia Leung, and Court Administrator, Jack Eslinger. How nice to see you both. Wonderful to have you. I think I've had you on before, if I had not.
Yes,
correct?
yes.
Great. Well, there's much to talk about, and I want our audience to know this is extremely exciting for us because we have so many young people that are looking at what are they going to do in life, and is this fun or boring, or what is it? So, starting with you, Madam Chief Judge, tell us a little bit about your background and why you chose the law, or did you not?
Oh, I did. I definitely chose the law. I'm originally from California, so I'm one of the many California transplants, and I grew up in a small town, Palm Desert, in Southern California. And so I'm licensed there. I did all my education in California. I went to Berkeley for my undergrad and Southwestern for law school.
You heard that, everybody. Berkeley. This is not chopped liver. Okay.
So I think at a very young age, I wanted to help people. I think that was a big motivating aspect for me in wanting to get into the law. But once you graduate from law school, you really don't know how to be a lawyer yet. You need some practical experience. And I came to Las Vegas for work. The work opportunities when I moved here in the 90s were amazing, and I think they still are. And I started my career here as a criminal defense attorney, and the criminal defense bar was extremely welcoming to new attorneys, young attorneys. There was some great mentorship for me when I first moved here. And then after being a defense attorney for almost a couple of years, the City of Las Vegas City Attorney's Office asked me if I was interested in becoming a city prosecutor, and I have never left the city since.
And you were one of how many women at the time, and minority as well?
Yes, I think there were some changes happening when I first came to the city attorney's office. There was a few women working there, but at one point I was the only woman deputy. This would have been in '99, early 2000s.
And so as you changed from being a prosecutor, yes, to being one who sits on the court as a judge, when did it and why did that happen?
Well, I did want to make a career change, and I really believe that these opportunities kind of happen for a reason. And so the opportunity presented itself in an appointment in 2008. So I applied for that. Our then Chief Judge, Toy Gregory, had passed.
Oh, right.
Right. And so I did apply. And I received the appointment, was very honored and very humbled, and then I've run for re-election now 3 times.
Wow, and those are 6-year terms.
Yes, that's correct.
And Jack, you are an attorney as well.
I am here.
Do you happen to have been born here in Las Vegas? Where are you from?
I'm a military brat, so I caught the tail end of my father's career. So he retired out of Scott Air Force Base. So I grew up in the St. Louis area.
But were you traveling a great deal with him, or?
Actually, like I said, I caught the tail end of his career. So I was born in Texas. We lived a little while in California, and the rest of my life was in St. Louis until I moved out here in '89.
And was he in the Judge Advocate General's Corps, or what? How did you get into law?
Actually, I got into law on a bet. There were 3 of us that went to high school together, and we all said we would go to law school, and one of them is a political consultant back in Missouri. The other one is a very successful business owner, and I'm the only one who went to law school.
And so the very successful one is, I'm sure, braggadocio and telling everybody and dangling, but you work for the most wonderful city of Las Vegas.
Absolutely.
So tell us your career path. Where did you practice, and then how did you get to be the administrator? Because then I want to talk about what you're doing on a daily basis.
Sure. After I received my bachelor's degree from Eastern Illinois. The job market in St. Louis wasn't that great, so I went down and got a master's degree in business administration from the University of Mississippi. Came back to St. Louis. The job market didn't get any better. I had a sister who lived out here, so in '89 I moved out to Las Vegas. spent 10 years working for the casino industry, and then came to the city of Las Vegas. So I'm in my 23rd year working for the city of Las Vegas.
Is 23rd year, and what did you start in the legal branch? What were you doing?
No, I started in human resources, doing mostly training and organizational development. When I came to the city of Las Vegas, I was already attending law school at night. So I continued on that path, graduated, and passed the bar in 2003.
And tell us about, I mean, to me, it's very interesting about the process. We all know the United States Supreme Court is the highest. So as we back down from there, there are circuit?
Yes.
All right.
Correct.
And they handle what?
In Las Vegas, we have the Federal District Court of Nevada, that's the circuit court. They handle issues dealing with federal law, issues dealing with federal crime, and issues between citizens of states primarily.
And then directly under them at the top for the state is our Nevada Supreme Court, correct?
Correct.
And then next under that?
Is our appellate court. As you know, in 2014, the citizens of the state voted to change the Constitution and install a Court of Appeals. Prior to that, we just had the Supreme Court and then the different district courts throughout the state.
And then in the county, we have the justices of the peace.
Well, in the county, we start with district court.
Okay.
So the 8th Judicial District Court is here in Las Vegas. It's located at the Regional Justice Center. And they handle all the cases, basically, that aren't misdemeanors throughout all of Clark County.
Okay, and then here we are.
Correct.
And we, for many years, well, first I know you were under the 95 in trailers, I think, originally.
That's
and
right.
then graduated and got into, once they completed the RJC, our Regional Justice Center, and a lot of issues there. And so pounding and begging, we finally built you a magnificent structure, the new Muni Court
Indeed.
building.
Absolutely.
And how are we loving it?
It's fantastic. It's a great place to work. Not lots of natural light peeling in. It's a very appealing building from the outside. We actually have people who do business with the court leave and say thank you. So even the defendants love it. So.
And it is beautiful, and we put it right next to Starbucks so they can send their zip lines back and forth to get coffee. So we have, in the Muni Court facility,
Yes.
we have 6 specialty courts or more. Tell us what those are, please, Chief Judge.
Sure. We have 7 specialty court programs and an additional program, a new program that we just started. Each of the programs is handled by a different judge, and they focus on a different part of our diverse population. So they go beyond the traditional drug court model. And for example, I run WIN Court, which stands for Women in Need of Change, and it is a gender-focused, trauma-based treatment court, and it tries to break that cycle. We try to help women break that cycle of addiction and criminal behavior.
How do you get selected for that?
Well, it's based on your criminal history, having committed a misdemeanor, and you're facing maybe substantial jail time based upon that record. The attorneys, we have the attorneys involved who might screen cases and see someone who is a candidate for change, but the individual has to voluntarily agree to these programs. We offer a lot of resources, but as you know, you can't just change because you want to change. There has to be that motivation on the part of the individual. So there's a combination of things that get involved as to how someone gets selected for a program.
So how many women are there incarcerated that might be wanting to get into a program? How many do you know at this time approximately? I don't know numbers at all.
I imagine hundreds. I think in our city jail we have hundreds, and it's sad. So I think that's why we've attempted to address recidivism as well as public safety with these types of programs.
So you're using social services, and they
Yes.
are paid for by the courts, or are they paid for under a different program? Just I'm speaking of WIN Court at this point.
Yes, we're grant funded. So we receive grant funding from the state as well as federal grants.
And Tell us about the other courts. Now, how many judges sit in the Muni Court?
6.
Total of 6. And I
Yes.
know we have a couple of new judges.
We
Not
do.
this past year, did we?
We have one new judge in Department 6, Judge Kelly Giordani.
Oh, right. And she is in, what's her specialty court?
She runs the Veterans Treatment Program.
Okay, now tell us a little bit about, I don't want to put you on the spot outside yours, but I figure you're the chief, you have to know it all.
Yes, well, it's specific to veterans who are struggling, who find themselves in the criminal justice system, and so there's an individual approach in all of our specialty courts to understand how did this person arrive here. So if they are not connected with services, we definitely in that program will get them connected to the right services. Housing, if they are unhoused or struggling with that, we will address that. There is also, of course, mental health issues, PTSD issues, and substance use. So we will address all of that in each of the courts, but the Veterans Court is specific to veterans' needs.
And so are we involved with the Nevada Department of Health? I mean, there's so many issues. I don't care what category, what specialty court, but the social service support system, where does that come from?
All of our specialty courts have multiple providers that they rely on. Some are government, some are private, some are, like I said, some are public but not government. We are involved. The program that Judge Leung mentioned, the 6 specialty courts in one program, is our psychiatric stabilization treatment program, and that one relies heavily on the Ross and Neal Center for the people who are in crisis. You know, we have a excellent working relationship with them. That's one example of just how we interact with the various government entities.
Is that the mental health? We have a mental health court?
We do. We have a mental health court program that's run by Judge Kara Campbell, and that is for folks who have severe mental illness, are really struggling with basic life skills, with housing, and so there is a high needs, a level of focus for that population. The PST program is a psychiatric stabilization and treatment, and that seeks to catch that gap of folks that don't necessarily qualify for a serious program, but who are struggling with mental health issues, who need stabilization immediately in crisis. And so I think with our programs, we try to adjust to what issues are presented and what new issues come up. And that's why we have additional programs like Fresh Start and PST.
And I'm sure data is everything these days. The follow-up on all these specialty courts. I know we have the mental health court, WIN. You have a DUI court.
Correct.
And that is whose
That is Judge Susan Roger.
Okay.
She runs the DUI
And
court.
are those anything to do with, is that again volunteer, that volunteers to be part of the program or has to clear certain criteria
Yes,
to be selected?
Every specialty court does have a certain selection criteria that they look for.
And
but
the rest do their time?
Correct.
Basically is
Well,
what we're saying.
correct, but-
These are people we're trying to give assistance to based on the criteria and then helping them. Now, are these individuals who are incarcerated, but because of the program, they are no longer incarcerated?
It's both.
Okay.
Yes. So some folks will come that have been charged, obviously, with a misdemeanor, and they may come to us out of custody. They may have multiple cases, maybe multiple DUIs, and what happens is the attorneys will bring to the court, this is a person that we think should benefit. Of course, the judge can look at someone's record and make that suggestion as well. And then there is a process where a counselor, a social worker, and each of our specialty courts has this type of therapist, will do an interview. and assess, how did this person get here? What is going on with them psychologically, legally? What is their housing situation? What is their trauma, if that applies? And then that professional makes the recommendation, you know, this is a good candidate, this is a candidate that would benefit but isn't ready, this is someone who doesn't require this high level of treatment but could benefit from a less intense program like Fresh Start or PST.
What does the recidivism rate, the repeat rate that people who've gone through the program, it must vary depending upon which of these courts. There's the youth offender as well.
Correct.
Hope Court is what? What's Hope Court?
Hope Court is for habitual offenders, so it's for people who have multiple offenses and are really stuck in that cycle of arrest, incarceration.
So overall, there has to be, just because of the type of program, recidivism is one far better than another. I would imagine Wynn Court, having been to many of your graduations, which are so moving and beautiful, and the stories the women tell of how deeply down they've been and yet managing. Is recidivism at a reasonable rate or no?
I can only speak to my program. I mean,
Yeah.
we do have statistics like that. We do check on what the criminal rate of, if there is, in Clark County. In my program, we are better than what I believe the national average is. But when you look at public safety and you look at what we're trying to do with our programs, if we can break that cycle for one person, and that stops this cycle of criminal behavior, of trauma, of substance use, then this woman who invariably has children or is someone's daughter, a mother, if we can break that cycle for a period of time, then I consider that a success.
You know, it's interesting when you look at the population, and I wonder, do we ever do studies of those incarcerated in our muni court system as to their backgrounds? By that I mean, were they raised by a single parent? Were they one of multitudes of children? Do we have, you know, we seem to always be treating the problem and not preventing. We're not even though there's the DARE program and other programs that we come up with, it seems to start in the beginning. And when you have a child who happens to get pregnant, we know that doesn't just happen, but gets pregnant, now as a child, generally the child will go to the grandparent, and now the child goes to school, and there's nobody really there to help the child succeed. And so after a couple of years, I can't do this, I'm embarrassed, and I'm out on the street. Mm-hmm. And then what can the street teach me? Do we do anything as far as collecting the commonality of our people that are in the jails?
Well, to speak to your question, which is the crux of the issue, there are different programs in the Valley. There is a high school that is a sober high school that deals specifically with substance use and teenagers. That's one way of addressing.
That's Mission, right?
Yes, that's right.
I was down there last week, a wonderful program.
Right.
And supported, we have a lot of support from our private sector,
Yes.
which we continue to need, and this is and now those youngsters there, are they part of youth court? Or
Could
be anywhere?
They're probably part of family court. Our youth offender court is young adult, so 18 to 25 or 26 years old.
And family court's district?
Correct.
Okay, so here we are again. There's a difference, and where does that separate? I don't really understand what has the district court get, or is that all by where the residency is?
It's both.
Is this a confusing subject or not?
It's defined by the type of crime. So Las Vegas and Las Vegas Municipal Court is the largest municipal court system in the state of Nevada. So we handle, our jurisdiction is misdemeanors that occur within our city jurisdiction. And so Justice Court will have misdemeanors in Clark County that is not in the city of Las Vegas, but also they will look at felonies and civil suits.
You don't look at those, correct?
We do not see felonies. We have jurisdiction for civil suits, but the practical reality is that folks don't usually file in city court. They'll file in justice court.
So approximately how many cases are seen annually going through the Muni court system? Do we have any idea?
We do. About somewhere between 30 and 40,000 traffic cases. Those are just traffic, so that's civil and criminal traffic, and about 30,000 cases or so of criminal cases that travel through our court as well.
Now, the homeless situation that seems to be prevalent around the country, where does that fit in our court system?
Well, our specialty courts will address that. That's one of the issues that most of the folks present, along with the substance use and the trauma and the criminal behavior. We have specific programs that will deal with that on a level such as Fresh Start, where someone is maybe on the verge of becoming homeless because of their life situation or context, and they just need some guidance and some assistance. So we try to address the diversity of problems that occur, homelessness being prevalent across the board.
And with the severely mentally ill, how are we, I know there are those that have the issues because of substance, drugs, alcohol abuse over a long period, but there are some that are in our homeless population that are dangerous to themselves, dangerous to others, not the other part of the homeless population, but where these are people that if they're incarcerated, how are we managing that population and giving them a chance to have a compassionate care and be monitored on a daily basis, because all the sanitariums, when I was young, there were sanitariums that were more hospital-like. We don't have anything like that, correct?
Well,
or do we?
I think that is correct, but that really hits to the crux of the PST program that we were referring to earlier. When we have defendants who show up to either the court or to our correction facility and they are in crisis, there's not much that either the court or the correctional facility can do anything about that. And that's why we've got this program to get them to Ross and Neal, so we can get them stabilized and we can get them the help that they need.
Well, and as we look to our community and we look at the larger, we're 155 square miles, our population for this city. When a phone call should come in that there's someone who really is somewhere else, what does the individual do? Who do they call? Do they call the courts? Do they call our marshals? How do we all work together? I know it's so important. We have great religious faith leaders that are involved. Our population, to me, seems extremely caring and involved, but what happens and what do they do? What does an individual do when you see somebody, or maybe somebody hitting on somebody?
I think the model that we're in now, that we're really actually trying to cycle out of, is that call would ordinarily go to 911, would invoke a police and medical response, and as you pointed out, we're short on facilities to be able to deal with this. So it ends up being, I think, most of the time now, a hospital issue.
So when we created our specialty courts, was that a leadership undertaking on our part? Had you seen models of these specialty courts elsewhere? Or are you just responding to the needs of our community?
I think we were very responsive to the needs of the community, and that's why there are so many different programs in our jurisdiction. We started a alternative sentencing and education department within the court, and many years ago this division worked with the Metropolitan Police Department to try to understand why do we have so many of the same folks getting arrested over and over and over again. So the concept of an alternative way of dealing with public safety instead of incarceration and criminal behavior was born out of this kind of a collaboration. So I think Hope Court was our very first specialty court program, and it was dealing with homelessness and what we would termed the habitual offender, so someone that would get arrested all of the time. And I think as we work with this population more, we realized it's so much more complicated.
Yeah.
And then that is when we began to diversify and understand, oh, you know what? If you are a veteran, these are your particular issues. If you are a woman, this may be what has happened in your background that led you, to municipal court.
It's so hugely complicated, and I know as we turn education and look at STEM because of technology, there is that social service side, the softer arts side, and certainly in our courts, in the law and philosophy and psychology, there's so great a need, more so than ever, and especially as we have just come through this pandemic and we've locked people in homes and they're isolated, and then you have depression on top of it. But out in our homeless population, if you had to define the words of misdemeanor for our public, what is a misdemeanor versus a felony?
Well, a misdemeanor is defined by the type of punishment. So it's up to 6 months in jail and up to $1,000 fine. So technically that is how we categorize what a misdemeanor is.
It's not the act. A misdemeanor used to be, and it's no longer, I guess, by the state legislature, jaywalking.
Correct.
Having almost killed a couple of people because there are areas of the community that are very dark.
Yeah.
And as we're wearing dark clothing, hard to see them. Now, it used to be a misdemeanor, so that person then would come in and be put in jail first, or would get a lecture or pay a fine, or just come into the court and this is my first time.
Actually, the reality is for most misdemeanors, there are serious misdemeanors that invoke more serious attention, but for something like jaywalking, my experience both having worked in the court and as the court administrator, very rare to spend time in jail for what I would consider to be one of the more minor misdemeanors. As a matter of fact, the legislature changed it. It's not even a misdemeanor anymore. It's a civil offense. So,
believe it or not, we are running out of time here already. This is incredible. If you could fix something or build something, our Chief Judge Leung, what would it be? I'm going to ask you the same question.
Well, I definitely would try to fix all of these issues that it is that you are talking about today. They go hand in hand, the homelessness, the substance use, the trauma, all of that informs a great deal of why people are committing misdemeanors and the population that we see. So more programs like the ones that we run, I would love to see that in other jurisdictions across the state because we need to do something different in the criminal justice system.
And how do we fund that?
Well, as you know, the court doesn't collect revenue. The revenue that the court earns is collected by the state, or I'm sorry, by the city. And so it's not something that the court can fix internally.
Okay, everybody, let me tell you, thank you at home for watching, and make sure never to miss an episode of Hello Mayor. Just scan the QR code on your screen to subscribe to our newsletter. And sadly, we're out of time, but we'll see you next time for another episode of Hello Mayor, and would love to have you both back because we just hit the tip of the iceberg.